Funny thing about the last battle, it never looks like one. It doesn't come with a trumpet or a crowd cheering your name. It sneaks up on you in the quiet, when you're tired, when you've got nothing left to give, when quitting feels like the only logical choice. That's when it hits. That's when the real war begins. Not out there, but in here. In that place where fear and faith keep switching seats. You've fought so many times before, haven't you? But this one feels different. This one feels heavier, colder, quieter. Because it's not about winning anymore. It's about surviving the part of you that wants to stop trying. It always happens right before something changes, doesn't it? That heaviness in your chest, that fog in your head, that voice whispering that it's pointless to keep going. You start to wonder if maybe it's a sign that you've reached the end. Maybe this is where it all stops, where the story fades to black. But what if that feeling isn't the end at all? What if it's just the noise before the breakthrough? Because the hardest battles never announce themselves. They disguise as exhaustion, confusion, hopelessness. They come dressed in doubt, right when you've got the least strength to fight. And that's how you know it's the final one. You think it's unfair. You've given everything, haven't you? You've carried the weight, taken the hits, smiled through pain, and still, life demands more. It wants one last piece of you. That's how it works. The test always comes when you think you've passed. Because growth doesn't check your comfort, it checks your breaking point. It pushes, and it waits, and it whispers. How bad do you want it? The cruel part is, most people quit right there. They mistake the final stretch for failure. They don't realize the wall in front of them is paper thin. It just looks solid because they're tired of pushing. You've seen people fall apart just before everything changes. You've watched them walk away seconds before the tide turns. That's how life works. It wears you down until surrender looks like relief. It tempts you to step back right before the light breaks through. Because the hardest battles always come before the breakthrough. Not because life enjoys punishing you, but because the universe wants to know if you'll hold the line when no one's watching. Anyone can fight when it's easy. Anyone can smile when things make sense. But to fight in silence, to stay when everything says, leave. That's where real strength lives. It's not about how many times you've been hit. It's about what you do after you've taken all the hits, and there's still one left to take. This last battle, it's not just about winning. It's about who you become while you fight it. It's where all the scars, all the losses, all the nights you almost gave up start to make sense. You don't see it now because pain blinds you. It fogs the lens until you start thinking maybe there's no purpose to any of it. But there is. Every blow you took was shaping you for this one. Every delay, every heartbreak, every failure was training you to face the kind of storm that breaks ordinary people. You just didn't realize it was preparation. You've got to understand something. The universe doesn't test your strength when you're fresh. It waits until you're drained, until you've got nothing left, and then it asks, do you still believe? That's the threshold moment. The line between the old you and the one waiting on the other side. The hardest battle isn't physical, it's mental, it's spiritual. It's the fight between who you were and who you're meant to be. And every time you feel like you can't go on, that's the sign that something's about to break, inside you, around you, or for you. Pain has a strange way of disguising transformation. It makes you think you're dying when really, you're being remade. That's why breakthroughs hurt so much. They require the death of the version of you that can't survive what's next. You have to let that part die tonight. The one that's scared, the one that doubts, the one that keeps replaying mistakes. That version's done its job. It got you here. But it can't go any further. The next part of the journey needs someone stronger, colder, quieter, wiser. Someone who doesn't beg for the storm to stop, but learns to move through it. And here's the irony. You won't see the breakthrough coming. It never looks like light. It looks like chaos. It looks like everything falling apart at once, because destruction always comes before creation. You think it's all over, but really, it's just rearranging. Everything collapsing isn't the end. It's the space being cleared for what's next. You're standing in that collapse right now, wondering why it hurts so much, but it's not punishment. It's transition. So this right here, this fight that feels impossible, this night that feels endless, that's the last one. The final test before the shift. The moment where most people give up and call it fate. But you're not most people. You've crawled through worse. You've survived nights you swore would kill you. You've seen the bottom and still found a way to rise. And now, here it is, the last battle. Not the biggest, but the most important. Because after this one, everything changes. But only if you keep swinging. Only if you refuse to fold when the darkness gets loud. Because the breakthrough isn't waiting for permission. It's waiting for proof that you won't back down right before the light arrives. Strength isn't what people think it is. Everyone imagines it as loud, as visible, as something you can measure by how much noise you make when you win. But that's not real strength. Real strength is quiet. It's the kind that shows up when no one's clapping, when no one's watching, when there's nothing left to prove. It's what keeps you standing when your knees are shaking, what makes you whisper, "I'm fine," when you're anything but. People love to talk about courage, like it's something you show on a battlefield. But most battles happen in silence, behind closed doors, where your only weapon is endurance. You see, it's easy to fight when adrenaline's high, when people believe in you, when everything feels like a movie. But when the world goes quiet, when the spotlight fades, when it's just you and your thoughts, that's where the real fight begins. That's where strength stops being an act and becomes a choice. Every day, you get up even though you don't want to. Every time you keep going when it doesn't make sense. That's power. That's the kind of strength no one celebrates because they don't see it. They only see results, never the weight it took to reach them. It's a strange thing, isn't it? How silence can be so heavy. How it can crush you without saying a word. You start to feel invisible. Like your effort doesn't matter because no one notices. But that's the trap. That's the lie. Because silence isn't emptiness. It's the forge. It's where pressure shapes you, where your cracks become edges. You think you're breaking, but really, you're being built. Strength doesn't grow in applause, it grows in absence. It grows when you keep showing up after everyone's forgotten you. When you keep trying even when no one's cheering your name. The world teaches you to associate strength with victory. But victory doesn't define you. Resistance does. To hold your ground when everything in you screams to run. That's real power. To walk through a storm without announcing it. To fight demons no one believes exist. That's what makes you unshakable. Because strength isn't about how loud you roar. It's about how long you can whisper to yourself, "Not yet," when life keeps throwing punches. It's about how many times you can rebuild the same pieces of yourself after everything falls apart again. There's something hauntingly beautiful about the ones who endure in silence. You can see it in their eyes, the exhaustion mixed with defiance. They don't need validation. They don't need to prove anything anymore. They've gone through too much to care about being understood. That's what silence does. It strips away everything fake, everything loud, everything performative, until all that's left is what's real, and what's real can't be broken. It can bend, it can bleed, but it doesn't shatter. That's what true strength looks like. Not unbreakable, but unyielding. You've probably noticed that the moments you feel weakest are the same moments that define you later. The nights you cried in secret, the mornings you got up anyway. The decisions you made when no one was watching. That's your foundation. That's where your strength hides. You don't see it because it doesn't announce itself. It's not supposed to. Strength doesn't ask for recognition. It demands presence. It's the invisible force that keeps you moving when logic says stop. The thing about silence is, it's honest. It doesn't flatter you. It doesn't distract you. It forces you to face what's left when everything else fades. That's why so many people fear it. Because in silence, there's no one to impress, no noise to drown out your doubts. It's just you and your truth. And that truth will break you before it builds you. But that's the point. That's where transformation happens. Not when you win, but when you endure. When you stop waiting for rescue and start realizing that surviving is the victory. Strength in silence isn't glamorous. It's raw, it's messy, it's lonely. It's the kind of fight that leaves scars no one can see. But those scars, they're proof. Proof that you stayed when others left. Proof that you kept your soul intact when the world tried to steal it. That's not weakness. That's the purest form of strength there is. You'll know you've found that kind of power when you stop needing to announce your pain. When you stop explaining why you're tired. When you stop looking for applause and start appreciating the quiet that once scared you. That's when you understand. Silence isn't your enemy. It's your teacher. It's the space where you discover that you don't need validation to be powerful. You just need resilience. So when you feel unseen, when it feels like no one notices the fight you're in, remember that silence is where warriors are made. It's where endurance becomes identity. Every quiet struggle, every lonely night, every hidden tear, it all counts. Because real strength doesn't echo, it endures. It breathes quietly in the shadows, waiting for the moment it's needed. And when that moment comes, it doesn't ask for attention. It simply stands. Funny thing about pain, it doesn't knock before it enters. It just walks right in, sits at your table, eats your food, and stares at you like it owns the place. You try to ignore it at first, pretend it's not there, talk louder, laugh harder, drown it out with noise. But pain's patient. It waits. It doesn't need to raise its voice. It just lingers, whispering in the back of your mind, reminding you it's not going anywhere until it's done with you. Most people hate it for that. They think pain's the enemy, the villain. But the truth is, pain's the only one that tells the truth. It doesn't sugarcoat, doesn't flatter, doesn't lie to make you feel better. Pain shows you what's real, whether you want to see it or not. You see, everyone wants growth, but no one wants the process. They want the transformation without the tearing, the breakthrough without the breaking. But that's not how it works. Pain is the sculptor. It chisels away at who you think you are until what's left is who you were meant to be. Every cut, every crack, every bruise, it's all part of the design. The problem is, people keep running before the masterpiece is finished. They feel the first sting and think it's punishment. But sometimes pain isn't there to destroy you. It's there to wake you up. To remind you that you've been living numb, surviving on autopilot, pretending everything's fine when it's not. The thing about pain is, it doesn't care about timing. It doesn't wait until you're ready. It shows up when it wants, and it stays as long as it needs to. It doesn't ask for permission to teach you lessons you never signed up for. But oh, how it teaches. It teaches patience, humility, empathy, the kind of lessons comfort could never teach. It breaks your ego, strips you of pride, leaves you naked in front of your own reflection until you finally admit, I need to change. And that's when the real work begins. That's when you stop blaming and start listening. Because beneath the screaming and the burning, pain's trying to tell you something. It's saying, this version of you can't go where you're headed. It's almost poetic, isn't it? How pain hurts you just enough to make you feel alive again. You start noticing things differently. The air tastes sharper. The world looks heavier. You realize how fragile people are, how temporary everything is. Pain gives you eyes that see through illusions. You stop believing the smiles that don't reach the eyes. You start recognizing desperation behind confidence. You learn to read people the way you wish someone had read you. Pain teaches you empathy through destruction. It breaks your heart open so it can hold more. But let's be honest, it's not a gentle teacher. It doesn't use kind words or soft hands. It drags you through the fire and watches to see what burns away. That's how it works. It doesn't test your strength. It reveals it. You think you're weak until pain shows you you're not. You think you're done until pain forces you to start again. It's cruel, but necessary. Because you don't grow when you're comfortable. You grow when you're cornered, when every breath feels like defiance. When giving up seems easier, but something inside you refuses. That's pain's real gift. It awakens that part of you that won't die quietly. You start to understand that the goal isn't to escape pain. It's to learn from it, to stop asking, "Why me?" and start asking, "What now?" Pain's not interested in your pity. It's interested in your transformation. It doesn't want you broken. It wants you rebuilt. Stronger, wiser, quieter. It wants you to stop chasing comfort and start chasing purpose. Because purpose, real purpose, is born in suffering. Not in the kind you brag about, but in the kind that no one sees. The nights you cry in silence. The mornings you rise pretending you're fine. That's where the fire is built. That's where resilience grows teeth. You'll notice something strange once you start embracing it instead of fighting it. Pain loses its power. It stops being this monster you run from and becomes a mentor you listen to. You stop fearing the bad days because you understand they're carving something inside you that peace never could. You begin to realize that everything you thought was breaking you was actually shaping you for what's next. You stop asking for an easier life and start asking for a stronger spirit. Pain changes your relationship with the world. You stop expecting it to be kind. You start appreciating the rare moments of peace, the small gestures of love, the quiet kindness that slips through the cracks. You stop needing grand gestures because you've seen how fragile they are. You start valuing truth over comfort, growth over approval, and solitude over noise. You stop chasing things that numb you because you finally understand that numbness isn't peace. It's denial. So you sit with your pain. You let it speak. You let it break the things that needed breaking. You stop running. And in that stillness, something shifts. You realize the fire that once burned you now fuels you. You start moving differently, talking differently, thinking differently. You stop begging for escape and start walking with the storm. Because you know it's leading you somewhere. You don't fear pain anymore because you've seen what it creates. It doesn't destroy you. It defines you. You ever notice how silence feels heavier when something's coming? Like the air itself starts to listen, like every tick of the clock is holding its breath. People think chaos announces itself with noise, sirens, screams, alarms. But real chaos, it creeps in quietly. It hides in the spaces between heartbeats, in the way the wind shifts, in the gut feeling you try to ignore. That's the funny thing about intuition. It's the only warning you'll ever get, but most people laugh it off until it's too late. You call it paranoia, but deep down, you know. You always know when something's about to happen. You just pretend you don't, because the truth is more terrifying than the unknown. See, this is the part most people miss. The trap doesn't need to be clever. It just needs you to be comfortable. That's all it takes. Comfort is the oldest trick in the book. It dulls your senses, softens your focus, makes you believe you're safe. You stop questioning, stop paying attention, stop fighting. That's when it tightens, the invisible noose, and you won't even feel it until you try to move. You'll think everything's fine because the chains are made of gold. They glimmer, they shine, they make you proud to wear them. But they're still chains, aren't they? That's how the trap works. It gives you what you want so you won't notice what you're losing. Everyone's walking around thinking they're free, but freedom isn't about movement. It's about awareness. You can dance inside a cage all your life and still think you're flying if you never look up. People trade awareness for pleasure every single day. They sell their attention to distractions, their peace to noise, their truth to approval. They call it living, but it's not. It's drifting, sleepwalking through a system that feeds on blindness. You ever wonder why so many people are tired even when they rest? Because their soul's exhausted from pretending it's alive. The trap doesn't come with alarms. It comes with opportunities. Too good to be true, too perfect to question. You'll think it's a blessing when it's actually bait. That's the genius of it. It doesn't catch the weak. It catches the unaware. It knows your patterns, your weaknesses, your desires. It knows what you crave when you're lonely, what you dream when you're desperate. It doesn't force you. It invites you. You'll walk right into it with a smile because it feels right. And that's the point. The perfect trap feels like destiny until it's too late to escape. You might think you'd recognize it. But traps don't always look dangerous. Sometimes they look like love. Sometimes they sound like opportunity. Sometimes they wear the face of hope. The best traps aren't built to scare you. They're built to soothe you. They make you trust them, depend on them, need them. Until the moment you realize everything you thought was saving you was actually sinking you. And by then, you're too deep to climb out. That's why awareness is the rarest form of strength. Not power, not wealth, not fame. Awareness. Because awareness can see the strings before they pull. It can sense the shift before the fall. It can smell the lie in the sweetest voice. Most people are so desperate to belong that they'll ignore the signs even when the truth is screaming in their face. They'll say, "It can't be a trap," because admitting it would mean everything they built was a lie. So they smile, keep walking, and call it faith. But faith without discernment is suicide with good manners. Every trap starts with a whisper. You deserve this. And you do, don't you? You've worked hard, suffered enough, waited your turn. So you take it thinking it's your reward. But not every open door is divine. Some are baited. Some are tests. Some are exits disguised as entries. The universe doesn't test your strength with storms. It tests it with stillness. It watches how you act when everything looks perfect. That's where most people fall. not in the dark, but in the light that blinds them. The clever thing about traps is they don't need to close fast. They just need to wait. Time does the rest. You stop noticing the walls when they move slowly. You stop fighting when comfort becomes routine. You stop questioning when the pain fades. And before you know it, your freedom has turned into a story you tell yourself before bed. I could leave any time I want. But you won't. You can't. Because the trap isn't around you. It's inside you now. It's in the way you think, the way you justify, the way you fear losing what you never really owned. Maybe that's the biggest trick of all. The trap doesn't have to catch your body. It just has to catch your mind. Once it owns your thoughts, your choices, your emotions, you're done. You'll guard the cage yourself, decorate it, defend it, even call it home. That's how deep it goes. That's how easily humans surrender. They think as long as they're comfortable, they're free. But comfort is the most elegant form of captivity. It doesn't force. It seduces. It doesn't bind. It convinces. And that's why so many never see it coming. So the next time something feels too easy, too perfect, too peaceful, listen closely. The silence before a storm always sounds calm. The sweetest poison always tastes divine. The most dangerous traps never look like cages, they look like choices. And if you can't tell the difference, maybe you were never free in the first place. It's always the same story, isn't it? People start losing focus right when it matters the most. They get tired, distracted, seduced by the noise. The finish line is right there, but they can't see it through the fog of exhaustion. They think the battle's over because the pain has become familiar. They confuse fatigue with finality. But the truth is, the closer you get to the end, the more dangerous the distractions become. They're not random, they're strategic. The noise comes to pull you away just when the silence starts revealing the truth. That's the trick. The world doesn't want you to win. It wants you to wander. You see, the moment you're closest to something real, something shifts, the air changes, people turn cold, obstacles appear out of nowhere. Suddenly, everything that used to be easy starts breaking down. The calls stop, the plans fail, the hope flickers. You start to think maybe it's not meant to be. That's when it happens. The pull to quit. The voice that says, "You've done enough." But you haven't. Not yet. You're just near the point where the pressure becomes unbearable because it's about to release. That's what most people don't understand. The universe doesn't test you to break you. It tests you to see if you'll finish. Everyone loves the idea of fighting until they realize how long the war actually is. They romanticize the start, the courage, the motivation, the thrill of beginning. But nobody prepares you for the middle. The middle is where the weak give up and the strong grow quiet. It's where doubt becomes louder than purpose. It's where nothing works, and you start questioning everything you believed. That's when most people surrender. They think silence means abandonment, but silence is just the space before transformation. That's why the world feels heavier right before something shifts. It's not punishing you, it's refining you. You've got to understand, quitting never feels wrong in the moment. It feels logical. It feels safe. It feels like peace. That's how it traps you. The feeling of relief masks the theft of purpose. You think you're escaping the struggle, but you're really walking away from victory. And it's funny, isn't it? The same people who swore they'd die for their dream are the first to bury it alive. Not because they couldn't make it, but because they didn't realize how close they already were. The truth is, the finish line doesn't announce itself. There's no drum roll, no lightning in the sky, no sudden burst of light saying, "You made it." It looks exactly like failure. That's the cosmic joke. The moment right before you break through will feel identical to the moment right before you give up. Same exhaustion, same doubt, same silence. The difference is in your choice. One step more, one night more, one breath more, and the entire story changes. But you'll never know unless you take it. People think strength is about power. It's not. Strength is about endurance. It's the ability to keep going when the mind begs you to stop. When every part of you screams for rest, and you keep walking anyway. That's real strength. It's not loud, it's not pretty, and it doesn't get applause. But it builds something that noise never could: resilience. That unshakable core that can stand in storms and still not fall apart. That's what's being tested right now. Not your talent, not your potential, your endurance. You see, the last part of any journey is always the loneliest. Not because no one cares, but because no one can walk it for you. It's yours and yours alone. People will cheer for your start and celebrate your victory, but the middle, the fight, the doubt, the silence belongs to you. That's where your character is carved. That's where destiny decides if you're worthy. Every great story has that one night where the hero almost gave up. This is yours. The temptation to quit is just proof that you're still in motion. You can't be tempted to stop if you're already standing still. So if it hurts right now, if it feels unbearable, that's the sign. You're close. The system fights hardest when it's losing control. Darkness grows louder before it dies. Every time you think it's over, it's really just the breaking point. And if you can survive that moment, you change everything. The world doesn't reward effort. It rewards endurance. It waits until the last second to see who's still standing. Because everyone can start. Few can stay. Fewer can finish. That's why it's called the last battle. Because it's not about how strong you were at the beginning. It's about how much you can still hold when everything else has been stripped away. You've already come too far for this pain to be meaningless. The fire's not burning to destroy you. It's burning to reveal you. The last battle isn't physical. It's psychological. It's the war between the version of you that wants comfort and the version that craves purpose. One of them has to die tonight. One of them won't make it to tomorrow. And that's why this moment feels so heavy, so personal, so final. Because it is. This is where people either collapse or rise, where they stop pretending and finally decide what they're made of. Every scar, every failure, every heartbreak, it all led here. To this night, this fight, the last one, and you already know what it's asking from you. Funny thing about timing, everyone wants to control it, but no one really understands it. You make plans, set goals, draw timelines on paper, thinking life's supposed to follow your little calendar. But it doesn't. Life waits until you're tired, until you've given up, until you've stopped checking the clock. Then suddenly it happens. Not tomorrow, not next week. Today. The day that looks like every other one. The day you stopped expecting anything at all. That's the day everything turns. You spend so much of your life thinking you'll be ready one day. You tell yourself you'll start when things calm down, when you have more money, more support, more confidence. You build excuses out of fear and wrap them in logic, convincing yourself it's wisdom. You call it patience, but deep down, it's hesitation. The truth is, you're never really ready. You just learn how to act anyway. Because the moment that changes, everything rarely waits for your approval. It just arrives. Uninvited, unexpected, unstoppable. That's the thing about divine timing. It doesn't care about your schedule. It doesn't care that you're scared or tired or not in the mood. It shows up when it's supposed to, not when you feel prepared. You can fight it, you can question it, you can try to delay it, but when it's time, it's time. The universe doesn't need your confidence to move. It only needs your cooperation. Readiness is a myth created by people afraid to leap. Nobody who ever made history was ready. They just understood that hesitation kills more dreams than failure ever will. You wait and wait, thinking something magical will click inside you, something that tells you it's safe now, it's the right time. But safety isn't part of the deal. The leap always comes before the net appears. That's why most people never get where they're supposed to go. They wait for peace before moving, not realizing peace is found after the move. Divine timing demands trust, not understanding. It asks you to step into the unknown when your hands are still shaking. You see, timing doesn't need your permission. It needs your participation. And when the moment finally arrives, you'll know. It won't come with flashing lights or an announcement. It'll come disguised as an ordinary day. You'll feel that quiet nudge, that inner voice whispering, now. Not tomorrow, not when you're stronger, not when it makes sense, now. And that's where everything inside you will want to resist. Your mind will flood with reasons to wait. Fear will disguise itself as logic. It'll tell you you're not ready, not capable, not equipped. But the funny thing is, the fear only gets louder when you're closest to your moment. That's how you know you're there. Life has this way of testing your obedience before your blessing. It won't ask you to understand the plan. It'll ask you to trust the timing. You've spent so long trying to predict when your turn will come. But timing is not about prediction. It's about preparation. Every delay, every disappointment, every detour, it wasn't wasted time. It was preparation time. You've been hardened, trained, reshaped in silence. The waiting wasn't punishment, it was construction. But the building process ends when destiny decides it's time to activate what's been built. That's what today is about. Activation. You'll never feel completely ready for what's coming because it's meant to stretch you. You've outgrown the comfort zone that once felt like protection. That's why it's falling apart. The people who used to fit your story are being removed. The doors that once opened are now locked. It's not rejection. It's redirection. The timing has shifted, and you're being pulled to the next chapter, whether you feel ready or not. And that's terrifying, because control feels safer than surrender. But the truth is, you can't control what's divine. You can only align with it. You'll look back one day and realize the moment everything changed wasn't when you planned it, but when you surrendered. When you finally stopped forcing things to happen and allowed them to. When you stopped waiting to be ready and started trusting that you already are. Because readiness isn't about having everything figured out. It's about trusting you can handle whatever comes next. That's the real test. And maybe that's why it has to be today. Maybe that's why it couldn't wait another week, another year, another lifetime. Because you've been prepared without realizing it. Every broken plan, every sleepless night, every closed door. It was all shaping you for this exact moment. You think you're standing still, but everything around you has been aligning for this day. The timing is perfect, not because you are, but because the story demanded it. When life decides it's time, it won't knock twice. It won't wait for your courage to catch up. It'll drag you into purpose by force if it has to. And in that moment, you'll understand, readiness was never the requirement. Willingness was. Because the divine doesn't choose the most prepared, it chooses the most surrendered. And when it moves, it doesn't ask how you feel. It just moves. You know what's funny about people? They beg for change, cry for miracles, pray for something different, and when it finally comes, they panic. They call it chaos, bad luck, coincidence. They look at the storm and forget that it was their own voice that called the thunder. You wanted movement, didn't you? You wanted a sign, a shift, something to shake you out of the routine you've been dying in. But when it arrives, it never looks like the picture you had in mind. It doesn't come with gentle music or angelic light. It comes as disruption. It tears down what you've built with your fear. It wrecks the comfort zone you worshipped. Because real change doesn't knock politely. It breaks the door. And that's the part most people can't handle. They say they want transformation, but what they really mean is they want a prettier version of what they already have. They want a miracle that doesn't require loss, a blessing that doesn't require breaking. But that's not how this works. Growth doesn't come in silence. It comes with noise, confusion, discomfort. It's the sound of your old life collapsing, so your real one can finally begin. You can't keep asking for something new while clinging to the old with both hands. The universe doesn't reward indecision. You either let go or get dragged when divine timing decides to move. It's not asking your permission. It's announcing your evolution. And that's the moment where most people hesitate. Because it doesn't look like a gift, it looks like destruction. You lose friends, jobs, relationships, your sense of control. You think you're being punished, when in reality, you're being repositioned. You keep asking, why now? Why me? But the real question is, why not you? Why not now? Because what's happening isn't chaos, it's alignment. And sometimes, alignment looks like everything falling apart before it all falls together. You ever notice how the best things in your life started with something breaking? You had to lose your balance before you learned to stand differently. You had to watch something crumble before you discovered how strong you really were. That's the joke no one gets. Pain isn't always punishment. Sometimes it's preparation. The collapse is part of the choreography. You think you're being buried, but you're being planted. You think it's the end, but it's actually the setup for the beginning you were too afraid to start. Every breakdown was a rehearsal for this moment. Every disappointment was a test of endurance. Every delay was timing in disguise. You can't outrun destiny, you can only delay it. And the more you fight what's meant for you, the more painful it becomes. That's what divine timing does. It forces surrender. It takes away your control piece by piece until you finally understand that you were never supposed to be in control in the first place. You were supposed to trust, to flow, to adapt. Because when it's time, everything you tried to force will suddenly move effortlessly. The right people show up, the doors open, the pressure lifts. Not because you did more, but because you finally stopped resisting. You can always tell when it's time. The air feels heavier, your spirit feels restless. Nothing feels right anymore, no matter how hard you try to pretend it does. You feel like you're being pulled by something invisible, something you can't explain. That's the signal. That's your cue. You can ignore it, drown it in distractions, pretend you don't feel it. But the pull only gets stronger. Because when the moment has been written for you, nothing can erase it. You can delay your destiny, but you can't destroy it. The script's already done. You're just catching up to the scene. And here's the thing about divine timing. It's not patient. It's precise. It doesn't arrive when you're ready. It arrives when you're needed. You may think you're late, but you're right on schedule. Everything that tried to break you was right on schedule too. It was training. Every heartbreak, every failure, every no you ever got, they were all appointments with purpose. You thought they were roadblocks, but they were mile markers. You're not behind, you're aligned. You're exactly where you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't feel like it. The truth is, divine timing doesn't make sense until it's over. You'll look back one day and laugh at how perfectly everything fit. You'll see how the things that hurt you the most were the very things that positioned you for your rise. You'll realize that the bad days were actually blessings wearing masks. That's the joke of it all. Everything you thought was working against you was secretly working for you. You were being shaped, refined, pushed into place. And now the scene has shifted. The pieces are aligned. The waiting is over. You can feel it, can't you? That quiet hum in your chest. That tension before the storm. That's how you know something's coming. Something big. Something you didn't plan, but somehow always knew was meant for you. The universe doesn't whisper that kind of energy for no reason. It's telling you the delay is done. The alignment is here. The clock has struck. It's not a coincidence. It's not random. It's the moment everything starts to make sense. Even if you don't yet understand how. People keep saying they're waiting for the right time. Waiting for the sign. Waiting for a door to open. Waiting for life to somehow line up perfectly before they take a step. But that's the problem. You think time is your servant when it's your master. You think you can control when it's right. But when the divine clock ticks, it doesn't ask for your schedule. It doesn't care about your comfort. When the moment is written, it happens. Whether you're ready or not. And that's where most people lose it. They spend so much of their life preparing for a tomorrow that never comes, rehearsing courage instead of using it. You ever notice how people talk about their dreams like they're fragile? One day, they say, when things settle down. But the truth is, things never settle. They just shift. The perfect moment doesn't exist. The right time is an illusion people invent to justify their fear. Because as long as they're waiting, they don't have to act. They can stay safe in the fantasy that one day everything will magically align. But life doesn't work like that. The universe doesn't hand you peace before it gives you purpose. It throws you into the fire and dares you to rise from it. The real timing is always inconvenient, always uncomfortable, always now. You see, when it's time, you'll feel it. Not in your head, but in your bones. It won't make sense. It won't look logical. It'll feel like a push from something unseen. That's how divine momentum feels. Chaotic, urgent, irrational. It's the kind of energy that keeps you up at night, whispering that you can't stay where you are anymore. But you'll fight it, won't you? You'll argue with it, bargain with it, tell yourself you're not ready. You'll convince yourself that maybe you misread the sign, that maybe it's not the right moment after all. But deep down, you'll know. You'll know it's not fear keeping you still. It's comfort pretending to be logic. The moment you say, "I'll do it later," you lose time you'll never get back. Later becomes never. Tomorrow becomes regret. You think you're waiting on life to change, but life's been waiting on you. You think you're stuck because the world's unfair, but you're stuck because you won't move when it tells you to. The truth is, the opportunity doesn't vanish. It transforms. The door you ignore doesn't stay open. It turns into a wall. The people who could have helped you move on move away. The timing that was meant for you gets reassigned to someone who was brave enough to take it. You don't miss blessings. You delay them. And the irony. The very thing you're afraid to lose by taking the leap is the thing that's suffocating you where you stand. People cling to stability like it's safety, not realizing that stillness kills faster than failure. You can't grow in a room that's too small for your spirit. You can't breathe in a space you've outgrown. The longer you stay, the heavier the air becomes. That's why the universe starts shaking your life, to remind you that comfort is not peace, it's paralysis. You call it anxiety, but it's really your soul trying to break out of the cage you built around it. You ever seen how storms work? They don't wait for permission. They just arrive, destroy what's fragile, and clear the ground for something stronger. That's what divine timing does. It wrecks what's weak. It exposes what's fake. It leaves you standing in the ruins of your old life, forcing you to build again with truth instead of fear. That's not cruelty. That's cleansing. The destruction you call tragedy is the only way the new world can be born. Because some walls can't be painted over. They have to be torn down. Some doors don't open. They need to be kicked in. People always ask for signs, but what they really want are guarantees. They don't want guidance. They want control. They want to know how it'll end before they start. But that's not faith. That's fear disguised as planning. The truth is, the sign you're waiting for isn't outside of you. It's the discomfort inside you. The restless heartbeat, the sleepless nights, the gut feeling that you're meant for more. That's the signal. That's heaven knocking. It doesn't come with lightning or voices in the sky. It comes as a whisper that grows louder the more you ignore it. So when divine timing says, move, it's not just an invitation. It's a command. You can resist it, delay it, try to hide from it, but it'll find you. Because what's meant for you has your name written in energy, not ink. You can't erase it. You can run, but you'll only end up back at the same lesson, the same test, the same mirror reflecting the truth you tried to avoid. That's how divine cycles work. They don't move until you do. And maybe that's what today is. Maybe that's why everything feels louder. Maybe that's why the world around you seems to be rearranging itself. It's not falling apart. It's aligning. The pressure isn't punishment. It's preparation. You're not losing. You're being launched. The timing isn't random. It's right on cue. You've been praying for change, and now it's here, disguised as discomfort. You asked for a sign. This is it. The call has been made. The time isn't tomorrow or next week, or when you feel ready. It's already ringing right now, waiting for you to pick up. People think the breakthrough comes with fanfare, like the sky will open up, and some holy light will announce that their moment has arrived. But that's not how it works. The big shift, the divine turning point, it doesn't always come dressed in beauty. It often comes disguised as chaos, confusion, discomfort. It sneaks in quietly while you're busy complaining about how unfair life has been. You'll wake up one morning and everything will feel off. Your thoughts, your surroundings, even the people around you. You'll think you're losing control, when in truth, Control is what's being taken from you because it's what's keeping you small. The divine doesn't ask you to be ready. It forces you to be real. It's strange, isn't it? How people pray for change and then panic when it arrives. You say you want better, but you cling to what's familiar, even if it's killing you. You ask for growth. But when the soil starts breaking, you scream like something's wrong. You can't become new without first being undone. You can't step into destiny without letting go of the identity that was built for survival. That version of you, the one that smiles through pain, that hides the scars, that keeps pretending it's okay. That version can't come with you. You've outgrown it. But letting go of it feels like dying, doesn't it? That's because transformation always feels like death before it feels like resurrection. See, when the divine says it's time, it doesn't consult your emotions. It doesn't ask how many nights you cried or how long you've waited. It just moves, suddenly, powerfully, without warning. It starts removing things, closing doors, breaking attachments you swore were forever. You'll look at the wreckage and think you're being punished. But it's not punishment. It's positioning. The things you thought were falling apart are actually falling into alignment. You're not being buried. You're being planted. But from the inside of the dirt, it's hard to tell the difference. That's why faith isn't about seeing. It's about trusting that the darkness has purpose. And oh, people won't understand. They'll think you've lost it. They'll call you ungrateful, selfish, unstable. They'll say you changed. And they'll be right. You did. That's the point. You can't rise while staying the same. You can't evolve while still explaining yourself to people who are comfortable in cages. They want the old you because the old you made them feel secure. The new you threatens their comfort. So they'll try to guilt you back into your old skin, back into silence, back into being small enough for their approval. But that's not your home anymore. That's your grave. You can't live there. You'll notice how the pressure builds right before the breakthrough. Everything seems to go wrong at once. You'll feel like you're being tested beyond your limits. That's not coincidence. That's divine timing at work. Pressure exposes weakness, reveals truth, and destroys illusion. It's the only way you find out what's real. When life squeezes you, what comes out is who you really are. And if you've been pretending, this is the moment the mask cracks. The real you comes forward, the one that doesn't care about image, that doesn't perform for validation, that doesn't need to be liked to feel alive. That's the version the divine has been waiting for. It's a funny thing. When the shift starts happening, everything that used to matter begins to lose meaning. You stop chasing validation, stop begging for attention, stop trying to prove your worth. The silence that once scared you becomes sacred. You start hearing yourself again. Your own thoughts, your own truth. You realize how loud the world had been, how much noise you mistook for purpose. And in that quiet, you find the power that was always buried beneath fear. You realize you never needed anyone to notice you. You just needed to notice yourself. That's when alignment begins. Not when the world applauds, but when your soul finally stops whispering and starts roaring. And when that energy starts moving through you, everything responds. Doors open that logic said were locked. People appear that you never met but somehow needed. Opportunities align in ways that make no sense. That's not luck. That's order. Divine order. It's what happens when you finally stop resisting and start receiving. You realize that all the waiting, all the pain, all the heartbreak wasn't wasted. It was all choreography, a setup for the rise. Every rejection was redirection. Every loss was pruning. Every delay was preparation. You were never being denied. You were being developed. That's what people miss. They think blessings come wrapped in comfort. But no, blessings come in the form of lessons first. You're built before you're blessed. You're refined before you're revealed. And when that moment finally comes, when the shift happens, it's never gentle. It's loud. It's fast. It's disruptive. Because destiny doesn't walk politely into your life. It crashes in, clears the room, and demands that everything fake get out of the way. It's not the sound of destruction. It's the sound of deliverance. You've been asking for a sign, and maybe this is it. The storm isn't against you. It's announcing you. The sudden change isn't the end. It's the entrance. The discomfort isn't chaos. It's calibration. You're not losing your balance. You're being aligned with something bigger, something bolder, something you were built for all along. It always starts quietly, doesn't it? No announcement, no warning, just a shift. 1 minute, you're surrounded by stillness, and the next, everything begins to move. You can feel it before you can see it. That strange vibration in the air, like reality itself, is about to break into something new. The funny thing is, people think change comes with noise. They expect drums, signs, dramatic moments that everyone notices. But that's not how real transformation works. Big moves always happen in silence. The loudest miracles are born in the quiet hours when no one's watching. The divine doesn't need attention. It needs alignment. You've been waiting, pacing, questioning why nothing seems to move. You've prayed, worked, sacrificed, and still, it felt like everything was standing still. But stillness isn't inactivity, it's preparation. Every delay, every quiet season was building momentum behind the scenes, like a storm gathering power beyond the horizon, unseen but inevitable. The moment it breaks, it won't ask for your permission. It will just move. Fast, ruthless, relentless. And all you'll be able to do is hold your breath and realize that everything is happening exactly as it was always meant to. It's strange how people confuse silence with abandonment. They think because they can't see progress, nothing's happening. But silence doesn't mean absence. It's the sound of gears turning in another dimension. The kind of work that happens when you're not looking. Think of it like this. When you plant a seed, you don't sit there shouting at the soil. You let the darkness do its work. You let time and pressure reshape what's hidden. Because the moment that seed breaks the ground, It's already survived battles you never saw. That's what's happening right now. The unseen has been working louder than the visible. You might not believe it, but what's coming has already started. It's not waiting for approval or applause. It's unfolding piece by piece, quietly, deliberately. People will look at you tomorrow and call it sudden. Out of nowhere, they'll say. But you'll know better. You'll know it wasn't out of nowhere. It was out of the silence. Out of the prayers no one heard. Out of the nights you thought were wasted. Out of the tears that no one saw. That's the irony. The moments you thought broke you were actually the blueprint for what's being built now. And when the shift finally reaches the surface, it'll be undeniable. Not because you forced it, but because it was always written to happen this way. Every rejection, every disappointment, every closed door was positioning you closer to alignment. People left not because you weren't enough, but because their part in your story was done. You were meant to stand alone for a while, so you could hear the silence speak, so you could finally realize that power doesn't come from the noise of validation. It comes from the quiet certainty that you're ready. When big things start moving, you won't have to chase them. They'll find you. They'll collide with your timeline like they were waiting for this exact hour. It's like the world has been secretly holding its breath, waiting for you to stop doubting, to stop trying to fix what's already been decided. Because once alignment begins, resistance becomes pointless. You can't slow down what was destined to happen. You can't undo what was divinely designed. You can only receive it, even if your hands are still shaking. The strangest part is how fast everything shifts once it starts. What took years to build in the dark suddenly erupts in the light. People who overlooked you will start remembering your name. Opportunities that were impossible will show up without warning. Doors that were sealed will open without you knocking. And it won't make sense. Not logically, anyway. But that's the beauty of divine movement. It doesn't operate by rules. It rewrites them. And oh, how people will talk. They'll try to understand it, explain it, reduce it to coincidence. They'll say you got lucky. They won't realize that luck had nothing to do with it. It was the unseen that did the work. The quiet seasons, the heartbreaks, the waiting rooms, the times you thought you'd missed your chance. It was all part of the current, pulling you toward this exact moment. You'll notice how the energy shifts, how suddenly everything you touch seems to move. It's not arrogance, it's alignment. The universe responds to someone who finally believes they deserve what they once begged for. That's when the unseen turns visible. That's when what's been promised becomes tangible. And it won't need validation. It'll just be. Because when the unseen moves, it doesn't whisper. It roars through results. The kind that silences doubters without confrontation. The kind that announces itself without explanation. The kind that proves the quietest seasons were the most powerful ones. That's the irony. All along, while you thought nothing was happening, everything was already being set in motion. And now, It's coming fast. Faster than you can prepare for, louder than you can process, and greater than you can predict.